Why don't any vegans look like gorillas? Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And yes, this video topic is a little tongue-in-cheek, and I like to make a lot of just random videos on these things. This is something that when I look at all my social media feed, I always see, vegans pointing to all this stuff of, well, look, a gorilla doesn't have to eat meat, and they're really muscular. It's like, yeah, technically they do, and they eat a lot of bugs, but I digress. The thing is, they like to point this out, and I'll briefly go over kind of why gorillas are more muscular than humans in terms of their GI tract and what's going on there, in terms of their ability to gain muscle. But they're forgetting a number of things regarding human metabolism and a whole lot of stuff in the GI tract. But the thing that I'm going to point out, so what does that have to do with humans? Okay, what does that have to do with humans? If we use that same silly logic that because some other animal does well on this, then why wouldn't we go, okay, well then if a tiger can live only on meat and it doesn't need any ascorbic acid, why do you need any vegetables? And your answer would be, well, because I'm a human. Exactly. And so you'll develop scurvy and deficiencies if you try to eat completely zero vegetables because you're not a tiger. You don't produce your own ascorbic acid like, let's say, an obligate carnivore. Okay, see how this logic works? It is really, really, really silly to take other species that have different digestive tract, different vitamin productions, everything else, and make these assumptions. And the reality is humans actually fill a completely unique niche in the ecosystem, right? They have a unique niche in that we are cooked food omnivores. Right, we're the only species that does cook food, and we actually thrive on cooked food. Like, we do better if only a small amount of our food is actually raw. Okay, we assimilate nutrients better from cooked food because we don't digest all the cellulose and other things. We get better calorie absorption if we cook our vegetables and our meats for the most part. Again, fruits and stuff do a little different, but definitely a lot of vegetables. Cooking is how we get rid of a lot of the anti-nutrients. So again, I think even the vegans will agree with this. The carnivores are crazy, and they go on and on about anti-nutrients, but most of those anti-nutrients are disrupted pretty well and broken down. The ones we're really concerned about just by cooking those plants, right? Just cooking them, it fixes it. Yay, problem solved. But they'll say this stuff, and then they don't realize, but you're not a gorilla, and it's obvious. And again, vegans struggle with gaining muscle. This is not something that hasn't been studied. On average, yes, vegans find it more difficult to gain the same muscle that an omnivore does, right? People who eat normal whole foods and include plenty of animal proteins, they do gain muscle easier. It's actually more difficult. And what they found is that even on sometimes structured diets, I saw a whole study done last year where a group of women who were on a more balanced diet, they had dietitians try to write them a vegan diet, and they struggled to get the same protein sufficiency once they were advanced lifters. These were all women who had 3 or more years of consistent lifting with a certain amount of musculature. Okay, they put them on even a structured vegan diet, and almost all of them lost a little bit of muscle tissue and a little bit of strength. It wasn't sufficient because even the protein intake that they were taking in, it had lower bioavailability, lower quality. They struggled to hit quite the same protein numbers they were normally used to, and lower bioavailability. They lost a little bit of muscle. So this is nonsense. This is what we see in humans. And so again, I'm not going to get into the ethical and moral side. We're discussing the muscle and everything else. And no, they don't look like gorillas, and vegans struggle to gain more muscle. We're not saying there aren't some vegans who are muscular. We're not saying there aren't some strong vegans. There aren't some vegans who are semi-successful bodybuilders. But by and large, even in these areas, they're never the best. Okay, the strongest vegan in the world, who they all highlight, is a mid-tier strongman. Mid-tier, he is not a world-class athlete. So we need to be aware of that. That's the best they've produced. Yeah, there's some vegan bodybuilders who've done okay. They're certainly not at the ultra-elite levels in bodybuilding for the most part. They really aren't. All right? Even when they're on anabolics. So I digress. It isn't easy, and it isn't like you're going to look like a gorilla. So how do gorillas do it? What is so different about a gorilla? All right, number one, gorillas have different gut biome. They actually are better at fermenting all the cellulose that they consume. So all the fiber and cellulose that a gorilla consumes, their gut is really more efficient than ours at converting it into short chain fatty acids. Okay, so again, not long. Most of our fatty acids we eat are longer chain, and there's medium chain, like you think of an MCT oil, then there's short chain. And those short chain fatty acids that they produce are a quick source of fuel. They're a very, very rapid energy source. And I've seen some data suggest that gorillas, get up to, like 20 to 30% of their calories from all the fermented cellulose that we can't absorb. Okay. They get it from that in the form of short chain fatty acids. So you also have to factor that in. You also keep in mind the sheer amount of those volumes. They're eating all this roughage that they get tons of calories from in that form that we as humans wouldn't be able to digest. Okay, so it would just fill our guts up, it would create all sorts of issues, and we would not get enough calories. Whereas in the gorilla, the male gorilla is getting something like 20,000 calories a day just from all those plants he eats, and not counting all the bugs and other stuff. They're not vegans. They're eating a bunch of bugs and everything with all these plants, and there's a lot of animal protein there. And the numbers I've seen, though, would suggest that, say, an adult male gorilla is getting 400 grams of protein every day just from his plants. Okay? So they're getting 400 grams. That's probably not counting the bugs. So the gorilla is getting and actually absorbing 400 grams of protein and 20,000 calories a day. So we'll extrapolate some of those numbers out. Like a lot of times a bodybuilder might only be getting 200 grams. A lot of really big bodybuilders eat, say, 200 grams. So let's say even they're half the size of the gorilla. Well, they're getting half the protein. The other thing to remember, because of their ability to ferment all that and absorb it better, the gorilla is not losing as much of the protein as a human does from those same plant sources. They're getting a higher bioavailability because they digest and handle it easier. All right? So they're getting a larger percentage of the plant protein than we do. They're getting a larger percentage of the calories, and they just eat the sheer volumes of food. All right, number two, gorillas don't have the same nervous system metabolism that we do as humans. Humans have one of the highest, actually the highest nervous system metabolism, one of the highest resting metabolic rates pound for pound of any other animal. This is why we need to cook our food. Okay, this is a point a lot of people miss. One of the reasons we benefit from cooking the food is we can get more calories to handle our higher metabolic rate that way. And as humans, if we were to try to eat just all raw foods and raw plants and raw meat, we actually will struggle to even maintain weight. We will oftentimes become emaciated. We are not geared to get enough calories for that, particularly if we're really active. Right? So a totally different digestion and metabolic situation, completely different. So that's why a vegan doesn't look like a gorilla, besides the fact they're also not a gorilla.